Nationwide, the unfunded pension liability for public employees is $8.28 trillion, and Illinois makes up $533 billion of that, according to the American Legislative Exchange Council's sixth report of unfunded public sector pension liabilities. Again, exceeding $8.2 trillion. Illinois' share of that is $533 billion. What's all behind that? Well, somebody who's been watching this closely as an independent public finance analyst, he joins us now, Bill Bergman. Bill, thanks for taking time with us. Break this down for us. How is it in the world we've got $533 billion, according to that ALEC report? Good morning.
Hi, Greg. Top of the morning to you. Yeah, that's an interesting number, and it's a lot bigger than what the state of Illinois reports on its own balance sheet for the following reason. Under government accounting standards, the discount rate, which is used to discount the future pension payments expected to be paid, in finance, we discount future dollars to a present value. And the discount rate that you use to discount those future dollars is very important for determining the present value of those liabilities.
So are we talking about what's going to be paid out in pensions, or are we also having to think about the post-employment pension benefits? Like in Illinois, we've got all those healthcare costs that are going to be covered.
Yes, and they're nearly as large as the pension, but that's not even in that number that the ALEC number is reporting today. The OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, including health care, is another large number on top of the pension.
So what are we looking at with $533 billion? How do we even possibly get to a point where that number goes down, if it can go down at all?
Well, if the General Assembly and the governor today took $500 billion from all of us and put it into the pension plan, we'd be back to square one. Unfortunately, the state and its representatives and senators and governors have allowed this to accumulate over time. And the dollar amount, as you noticed, is staggering. Today, we've had, after the COVID experience and the government lockdowns that caused the economic downturn, we've had a massive infusion of federal money. And reportedly, both the state and the city of Chicago are swimming in, quote, surpluses, unquote. But those are only cash basis type accounting numbers that are only temporary compared to this longer term bogey that we're talking about, the huge hundreds of billions of dollars that will be with us today, tomorrow, and in the years ahead.
So again, we're talking about a new report that the American Legislative Exchange Council put out this morning, showing that nationwide, unfunded pension liabilities are $8.2 trillion. Illinois has the second worst unfunded liability that ALEC pegs at $533 billion. So that's more than $500 billion that Illinoisans are on the hook for. And of course, each individual taxpayer is going to have to foot that bill if they choose to stay in Illinois, right, Bill?
That's true, and more of them are choosing not to stay in Illinois, which leaves a bigger burden for the rest of us.
Now, let's talk about something else that's kind of a little bit wonky, and we've only got a few moments here, Bill. So, again, we're talking with independent public spending analyst Bill Bergman on Springfield's Morning News. The stock market, I looked at a 6-month chart. All major indices seem to be on a downward trajectory. We've got a lot of dollars, a lot of public dollars that are meant for pensions that are invested in the stock market. Is it good or bad that the stock market's been on a downward trajectory when it comes to your tax dollars invested for pensions?
It's not good for you and I, and that's an important point. You and I, we may not own stocks. Even if we don't own stocks, however, we're in the stock market because we're taxpayers. We are exposed to the downturn in the stock market in the last year or so, or since late last year. We've had a roughly 15 to 20% decline in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. At the same time, though, we've got to recognize that that's just over an 8-month period. Over the last 5 years, on the other hand, the market's still up 66%. And what does the future hold is the more important question.
Well, tell us, what does that future hold?
We don't know, and that's where things get more serious and I think concerning to your audience. The uncertainty that we have in the stock market, despite the fact that we're in the stock market as taxpayers, is a cost or a risk that we're bearing as taxpayers. And looking ahead, again, I don't know where the future holds for the stock market. It's been up 66% in the last 5 years. But if we look back to the 1960s and 1970s, from 1965 to 1982, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 75% in a period of persistent and rising inflation, which is another element of this forward-looking crystal ball stuff that we've got to think about. We've had rising and persistent inflation since the government's response to the COVID and the Federal Reserve's response to the government's response that is hard to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. But if we get consistent and persistent inflation looking ahead, it's not going to be good for the stock market. And in turn, the pension plans in Illinois are roughly, as you noted, depending on how you define equities, 80% invested in stocks, which is a very risky asset class. And it's maybe good for the insiders that they get the upside if the market goes up. But you and I, because Illinois guarantees those pension benefits to the recipients under law, we get the downside. And that's the ways in which, in general, government awards special interest groups benefits and socializes potential losses. That's something that's a fundamental problem. I don't know what the future holds in terms of the stock market, but I know that I don't feel good being on the downside as a taxpayer in Illinois.
Bill Bergman, an independent public spending analyst here with Springfield's Morning News. Definitely appreciate your insight on this as we look at a couple of different things, not just taxpayers having to make up the difference whenever the stock investments for pensions don't bear out, and also the staggering report from the American Legislative Exchange Council about Illinois having $533 billion of unfunded pension liability nationwide, second worst in the country, adding to the $8.2 trillion when you combine all states. Bill, greatly appreciate it. Let's chat again soon, all right?
Have a nice day.
You too. It is Springfield's Morning News now on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.